You're listening to the Comic Crusaders podcast. I am your host, Al Mega, CEO of Comic Crusaders and Undercover Capes. In this show, I'm sitting down with creators from all walks of life to talk about inspiration, process, the lessons they've learned, and a whole lot more. Yo, what up, everybody? It's your boy, Al Mega. Welcome to a brand new Comic Crusaders podcast. First, but today I have a co-pilot. He's an amazing writer himself, comic creator, fellow, you know what I mean, doing his thing. Let me introduce the one, the only, Nemesis. What's poppin', kiddo?
What's going on, brother? Ready? Glad to be here, back from a week sitting by a pool in San Diego, so I'm ready to get back into it.
Well, I can't spoil you like that, all right? No, but we will get spoiled because we're about to talk to two awesome people, two amazing creators, all right? Let me introduce first the lady in the house right here. Her name, which I will say in a minute, but let me say this, all right? She has been out there doing her thing on titles, you know, via TKO, Black Mask. I mean, she is ill. I mean, you saw the picture right in the background. She has her hands all over that. Let me introduce the one, the only future legend, Liana Kangas. How you doing?
Hey, how are you guys?
We're doing great. Excited to talk to you about this project over here. And let me introduce your partner in crime. All right. Now, homie, been around too, writing for stuff in DC and everywhere. I mean, doing this for Batman and Swamp Thing, amongst a whole other stuff, and his own goodies. And now also in IDW with this amazing project, you know, with you, the one, the only Scott Bryan Wilson. What's popping?
Hey, what's up, man? Thank you.
No, you guys rock, yo. Let me tell you. Folks, wait till you get your hands on this book in August, the 17th. You need to pre-order, like ASAP, all right? But we're going to get insight into this amazing story. There was a Kickstarter, and it got picked up by IDW, all right? Shout out to IDW for recognizing awesomeness when they saw it, all right? So, I don't know if you've seen the show before, but we got to get into the origin stories first. So, ladies first on this one. Hey, so Liana, talk to me. Where you from? Where you grew up? And what was your first taste of pop culture?
Oh man, I grew up in a small town in Florida on the Space Coast.
I lived in Cocoa recently.
Oh yeah, so pretty close to there, actually, really close. And I think my first taste in pop culture was probably. My mom showed us the Star Wars movies, you know, all the time. So
shout out to moms.
Like, the Labyrinth and Dark Crystal and all that stuff. She was hugely obsessed with Jim Henson. So, and then eventually, you know, comics started collecting in our house, like old issues of like Green Lantern and things like that. And I just ended up liking that stuff anyway. So I think nerdy parents equal nerdy kids.
Yay! Shout out to nerdy parents.
And then you end up working on Star Wars adventures. How was that?
Yeah. It was a dream come true. I actually texted my brother and he didn't believe me. So
wow,
it was a wonderful, like, full circle moment. Full circle.
Well, that's fire. What, don't tell me he picked the call. You called him and he's like, "Come on, stop lying."
Oh yeah, absolutely. Yeah, he's totally like that. So that was kind of cool too, because it was Luke and Leia, you know, so I could be like, I told you. And also, you know, great sibling story.
Yeah, very absolutely. Cool. So Mr. Wilson, what's poppin'? Where you from? Where you grew up at, and what was your first taste of that pop culture?
I grew up in semi-rural Georgia, and you know, I loved Star Trek and Star Wars a lot when I was a kid. And
who introed that to you? Was it self-discovery, or somebody put it on and said, "Watch this"?
Yeah, I think I probably had some Star Wars action figures. I remember seeing my dad taking me to see Return of the Jedi in the theater when I was 6. I think that might have been my first movie in the theater. But I really liked Star Trek a whole lot, probably more than Star Wars, which is still the case. But I liked Star Trek a whole lot, and it was on TV a lot where I grew up, so I could just watch it all the time. You know, this is before VHS, really, before DVDs, so we just kind of.
Oh, you're talking about the Betamax days?
Man, before, yeah, pretty much. So, but it was on a lot, so I could watch it a lot. So that was great. Doctor Who as well was on PBS, I think. like 10 o'clock on Friday night. So I would watch that. But I was always into comics from a really young age too, probably like maybe first, second grade. My grandfather took me to this big newsstand near his house that just had loads of comics. And, you know, I just bought tons of stuff. I didn't know what any of it was. So I would just buy tons of random stuff. And then I would just sort of go through it and, you know, read it all and see what I liked and, you know, sort of went from there.
So I have to ask the question: original series or next generation? Which one, or something else?
Original series, but I watched the Encounter at Farscape, or not Farscape, Encounter at Farpoint the night it premiered. So, you know, I would say I watched most of the first 3 or 4 seasons of Next Gen as it came out on TV, and then I was in high school by that point, so I was busy working in a burger joint and things like that at night, so I kind of missed some of the later seasons, but I'm all caught up now. I've seen everything many times at this point. So
well, there's your lead in right there, working in a burger joint.
Yeah.
Oh my God. No, we're gonna talk about that. We're gonna talk about that. But hold on, we gotta know something else here. Because before we get into that, I really want to know also what made you decide to get into like the creative process. So Liana, the floor is yours on that. Like, when was the day that you said, I want to take this more serious? What happened?
My late grandfather, actually, he was a professional artist, and I think he got his master's and almost his PhD in art and art education. So I had actually applied for Massachusetts College of Art originally, where he went, and I think I was not able to move away from home, and I ended up just doing community college classes and ended up enrolling for a different college altogether. But in the interim, I had actually did like life drawing classes, like art class in high school. I took AP art, and I think that's probably what spiraled it, is like, I guess, traditional teaching in high school and like community college, but then didn't finish college with it and just kind of found my own path. Like, I tried everything, like oil painting, all that stuff, but I always was drawn to comics, like storytelling, you know, on page. So
I was wondering, just a follow up on that, how did you get? I happen to have a child who is in school for art right now in community college. It's like, how did you come to that, you know, come from that fine art background into comics? Because that's always such an interesting, there's not really an educational path out there to be a comic artist, you know? So.
Well, SCAD and Kubert School have pretty robust programs for doing comics, but I didn't know that at the time. And I actually applied for Ringling as well, which is weird to mention because I had forgotten all about that. But I just I couldn't afford, I was very poor. I almost couldn't afford community college, to be honest. Mm-hmm. So it was difficult, but what I actually ended up doing was like local workshops and classes when I could afford, like those are a lot cheaper. And so I kind of just kept in the art community, and like I would actually convince my grandpa to do art, so I had somebody to do it with. And my high school best friend ended up actually doing something similar, but she went to these high profile art colleges. So it was kind of like living in the lens of like her experiencing that and me being like, I'm kind of glad I didn't do that. And I got a whole bunch of like real life work stuff, much like burger flipping instead. So
you were a burger flipper too?
I was a sandwich schlepper. Okay. If that counts. Yeah.
I think it's so interesting, though. It's like, it seems like that with everything. You find people, it's like that real world experience almost gives you a better education on doing something than
absolutely
going to school for it. So, yeah.
And I think it makes you choose what you actually want to do because you've done so many things. So you can kind of gauge like what each thing takes. So.
Nice. What about you, Big Scott? What's popping? What was the day that you took that stuff seriously? And like, all right, I really want to get into this and step in. And what was your first, opportunity like?
Yeah, I mean, I always wanted to be a writer. I mean, as far back as I can remember, I always wrote. I always wanted to do it, and I went to graduate school, study writing, because I realized I was graduating college and had no possible career paths and was completely unemployable. So I was like, well, I'll go to graduate school for writing. That'll buy me another couple years, right? So I did that. And you know, you know, that was a good experience for me because it really gave me 2 years just to read and write. And I really put my head down and worked hard for a couple of years. That's also, you know, I like a lot of people, I got to high school, I kind of got out of comics for a while, especially because I was in high school in the 90s and comics weren't at their greatest point. So, you know, I wasn't that interested, but when I got, you know, around 2001, I just I guess it was Dark Knight 3 came out and I, you know, I randomly grabbed it at like Barnes and Noble or something. And then like the next day I was in a comic shop just buying all sorts of stuff. It just reignited this feeling that I had forgotten about, you know. And, you know, so I really haven't stopped since, you know, since then. So it's, you know, I read them a lot as a kid through, you know, middle school, took a couple years off in high school, college, and then been pretty voracious since then. But, I knew, you know, I always want to be a writer. I never really thought about writing comics. It was one of those weird things where like, it never occurred to me. Like I'm kind of dumb sometimes. And it just like never occurred to me that was something I could do. It was something that, you know, I liked reading comics and, you know, I recognized that there were writers of comics who I liked. But something in my brain had never clicked because I was going to write novels. I was going to write, you know, big, heavy literary, whatever, you know. And, you know, I actually ended up, got a job at DC Comics when I got out of school.
Right out of school?
Wow.
Yeah. I mean, not doing anything I was qualified for, you know, or studied to do. I just happened to sort of look into it. I worked there for 11 years. And it was there, you know, that I really learned like how comics are made, because before then I didn't have any friends who read comics. I didn't talk to them about them with anybody, you know. And it was there where I learned how the industry worked and I learned how comics are made. And it was a really good education for me. And then it was, you know, as I was leaving the company in 2015, I think, that I realized like, well, because when I worked at DC, I wasn't able to write any comics, not just for DC, but for anybody. Right. So it never occurred to me. I was just, I'm just keep working on novels and the short stories and things I had been working on. And as I was leaving or getting ready to leave, Mark Doyle, who is actually the executive editor of IDW Original now, he was the Bat Group editor at the time, and he was buddy. You know, we were buddies, and you know, I was getting ready to go on to whatever I was going to do next. And he was like, "Well, since you're leaving, you can write comics now, right?" And I was like, "Oh, okay. Yeah, I guess I can." You know, it was like this thing. Like I said, I'm dumb sometimes. It didn't click in my head. You know, my wife will. She will vouch for that sometimes things just don't click with me the right way. But
listen, I think every wife will always say that about their hubby.
Yeah. So you know, I said, yeah, sure, I could, and then that was sort of my you know, it took a few months to figure out something, but you know, that was really my first opportunity. But I really started thinking about it at that point, you know. Whereas before I was just I'm gonna go do something else now, and I'm gonna keep working on these novels I'm writing, and that'll be my thing, you know. So. Now it's like I owe my entire career to Mark. So it's,
shout out Mark, kiddo.
Yeah, shout out
Mark rules.
So yeah.
Okay. Now we're going to say something because, Andrew felt the type of way. He goes, "90s was the best." I mean, maybe the first half, but the latter half, absolutely not.
Drew likes to talk shit. He likes to stir the pot.
Yeah. And then we have Andrew as well. You know, who's your favorite? Another Andrew asking, who's your favorite comic character? So I'll let you answer that one, Scott, and I want Liana to answer as well.
Oh man, I don't know. There's so many. I don't know. Probably, I don't know, Lone Wolf and Cub or something. You know,
because you were a Lone Wolf growing up.
Yeah, you know, something like that. I don't know. I don't really think of it in terms of characters. I mean, there's a lot of characters I like. You know, I like Daredevil a lot. I like Conan. I like Batman. I like, you know, Lex Luthor. I like. There's a lot of characters that I find. Constantine. I like him quite a bit. There's a lot of characters that I like a lot. I think more in terms of like books. You know, like books I like. I think From Hell is the greatest comic ever made.
Oof. Yeah.
That one's just can't the influence that has on me, especially in my later, as I'm older, the influence that book has on me as a writer really can't be understated or overstated. I'm not sure which one it is right now, but you know what I mean. So yeah, so that would be Usagi, Yojimbo I like a lot too. So yeah,
Very cool.
I'm kind of like Scott, where I have a whole bunch of favorites. Like growing up, I liked a lot of DC stuff, and I really liked Peter Parker, Spider-Man.
Okay.
Tim Drake was my favorite for the longest, I think. Still is. Like the only statues I collect are mostly Tim Drake or
Your house is full
Robin
of
or
Robins.
Nightwing. Yeah. But I actually would have to say Dylan Dog now.
Ooh.
By far the best personality, I think, of the weirdest character dynamic I've ever seen, and I just can't stop. I've reread stuff, like it's really good.
So just a quick follow-up for both of you. Except outside of your own original stuff, right now, if someone came to you and offered you this opportunity, your dream opportunity to draw and or write a character or series, what would it be?
Gotham Central.
Okay, cool. Very cool.
If he was mute, he would have blown up right now.
I think any of the Birds of Prey for me, which is funny that it's also DC, but
Ooh,
yeah.
very nice.
Very
All right,
cool,
so
very
no hate on Marvel, just saying that they have like
I
DC
love
has iconic
Marvel,
characters.
but yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
There's a lot of Marvel behind me, but you have to know up higher is all DC stuff. So it's like...
Fantastic. So, talk about now, just you guys hooking up before we dive into the book. What's the origin of the bromance, if you will, of how you guys got together for this amazing project called Trve Kvlt? That was the Kickstarter. We're gonna get, I'm gonna show you the original Kickstarter, so that way you guys could appreciate the art, the paneling, the verbiage, because again, there is a story behind the burger flipping.
Scott, you want to take this one? Or two?
Yeah, so I think the version we've sort of figured out is we both had a story in the Where We Live anthology from Image.
Ooh.
And I met Liana at East Coast Comic Con in 2017, I think.
That's the one in Jersey, right?
Yeah. And I met her there. And I said, "Hey, I think we're in the same anthology." And we chatted for a bit, kept in touch, and then we ended up doing a signing for Where We Live at a shop in Jersey. And somewhere in there, someone had emailed us separately about being in another anthology, and I mentioned it to her at the time, and we were like, "Well, why don't we do a story together?" So we did a 2-pager in the Good Fight anthology, and we had a lot of fun working together. And we just like, "Hey, well, we should do a book together sometime," and because there's a ton of artists that I have we should do a book together sometime with, but it really takes the right project, the right timing, and the right relationship to make it happen. And we should do a book together sometime was like a week later was Trve Kvlt.
A week later.
I don't know.
Wow,
It wasn't
shortly after. Yeah.
It wasn't very long, and we were chatting, I think, over email or on the phone or something. And she said, I always wanted to draw like an Ocean's 11 style heist book. And I had already been toying with the idea of this fast food heist book. And I said, "Hey, well, I got a little something, like, let me tell you about it." And, we talked about it for, I don't know, 2 or 3 minutes, and we're like, "Yeah, this is the book. We'll do it," and then we just started kind of slowly working on it. I think I did a few pages, and she did, I think we originally did, we did 5 pages, right? Because we were going to pitch it around at 5 pages.
Yeah, something like that.
And we realized in the original outline for the book, the heist happens in the middle of the series, right? It was a big centerpiece in the middle of the series. But we realized with if we're gonna just pitch it with 5 pages, we had to have the heist in the first 5 pages. So we just said, fuck it, we'll put the heist there, we'll move it, So and it worked out better that way. I think that's the way the story was supposed to be told. So it worked out.
Oh,
But,
yeah.
yeah, we did those 5 pages, and we started pitching it around. And the funny thing is we actually had 3 or 4 publishers who were interested in it. And then the pandemic
We had a green
hit.
light, kind of. Yeah.
Yeah,
Nice.
we were definitely moving toward, something. And then the pandemic hit, and it just became, okay, nobody knew what was happening. A lot of people we knew who were doing creator-owned books were finding out their books were being canceled
Or
by the
shelved for a
publishers, or
long time.
shelved.
Yeah.
And I said, you know what? If we sign a contract right now, it could be years before it comes out, right? So
I
we were
remember
like,
that
well,
conversation.
we were like, well, maybe we can just do the book, and then we'll just print it ourselves, and we can sell it out of the trunk of the car at
We were
cons
too
or whatever.
impatient.
Yeah, we were like,
but it
yeah,
paid off.
we were ready to make the book, and neither one of us were like swamped with, work from publishers at that time, right? We were still very like young in the sort of figuring things out. And so we just made the book, and we just started making the book, and we decided, hey, let's just put it on Kickstarter and see what happens, and we knew we were going to make it anyway, like no matter what. So we were like, we could do we don't have to ask for an exorbitant amount of money, right? Try to raise an exorbitant amount of money. We can do something attainable and just see what we can do. The whole time, the idea was just like, let's just do the book we want to do and make it exactly the way we don't want to do it without any.
We're talking about this Kickstarter right here.
Yeah, so that was back in 2019, right?
Oof, wow.
Was it 2019 or 2018?
Well, it was a pandemic.
2019, yeah.
No, it was 2020 because the pandemic started in 2019.
October 2020. Yeah.
I don't remember. Well, whatever it was, it worked out well for us. And, actually, IDW texted me about an hour after we launched it, and we're like, hey, what's up with this book? Right?
What?
So,
you launched and you already got hit up by a publisher within an hour? That's a dream, dude.
Yeah, we actually had a few publishers get in touch with us after we launched. You get visibility that way. But IDW from the beginning was like, it felt right. It felt really like the publisher for us. Like we were like, we sort of decided pretty quickly we wanted to go with them. And
they were so into the idea of like it being metal and Satanism and fast food and like,
Yeah, they were just great. And we told them, we were like, yeah, we would love to talk to you about doing the book, but we got to finish it first. We're going to finish it for our backers. We're going to do the whole thing, and then we'll talk. And they're like, all right, we're cool. And they would just check in with us every now and then and be like, hey, hey, you haven't gotten rid of this yet, right? You haven't signed with somebody else yet, right? So it was really great. They were really great, and they've been great.
That's a dream, and it's wonderful. So,
cool.
how do you put your experience in the fast food industry behind, into this story, being that both, one was a sandwich flipper and the other being a burger flipper? How did you use that to create this universe here?
It definitely backed, I think, the personalities of most of the characters.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of personal experiences that you can kind of just like throw in a pot and mix together, and you have your very specific main characters. Scott has this unreal, incredible way of writing very relatable characters with very humor surrounding either like personality traits or like things that just happen to them. So I think that was the best part of drawing the entire book too, was almost getting like PTSD of like reading the script and being like, oh yeah, you know what I mean? I remember that, and feeling it and putting it back into the book. I think that's why it turned out so great.
Yeah, I think my friend told me once, she said, all your comics, it's just always full of this stuff that is just weird, that doesn't really have to do with anything, but it really like builds the world of the comic, And I never thought about it that way until like she said it, and then I kind of looked at it and I was like, oh yeah, but I think like the idea is that we both take our experiences that we've had and we just cram it into every panel in some way. We find some way to we find some way to put these things we really experienced everywhere, to influence the characters and the story, and to build it feels like a real world, right? Like when you really start to like think about every page as
Yes.
telling these stories within stories. So I think that was, outside of the nuts and bolts of working in the burgers, like, there's a lot of things that get discussed throughout the series, like the bun order, filtering the grease, those kind of things that are 100% real things that happen in fast food joints, right? But they're discussed in the book as like psychological crises, and I think like just taking all those things and building the book around these tiny moments really helps us both, tell the story.
Please tell me you had supervisors that were like those twins in the book. That was hysterical. Oh my God, the way they would talk to the staff. And I've seen stuff like this. I didn't work in fast food, but I did work in a supermarket as a kid. And man, those personalities are spot on.
Yeah, I mean, it isn't about like like we want this book to be relatable to anybody who has a job they have hated and were disrespected in, right? Not just, oh, you had to have worked at Burger King or wherever, right? But anywhere,
Right.
like you can have some corporate job at Verizon, right? And you can relate to this, like,
Oh yeah.
With the main character, I was wondering if you could give it a little more background on where that character came from, because I thought it was so interesting, especially in a book that has Satanism and robberies and everything else, is that here's a character who has an enthusiasm for being a fast food employee that I would say rivals SpongeBob at the Krusty Krab.
Yo, facts, bro.
It's the first time I've heard that one.
Yeah.
Marty has had quite a journey of the evolution before he hit the page, I think, in terms of before we even did the pitch pages, because I think he was originally written as like an older man.
Yeah, he's a little older, yeah.
And I think like one of the things that I had asked Scott in the beginning was I think Marty needs to be a little bit younger, maybe in his 30s or even late 20s, just because like I feel like that's going to be the most relatable, but it's on the cusp of like when you hit that age when you're like shit or get off the pot of like a job that you've been at for like 8 years and you're like, is this it? Or am I going to move up from here? Or do I do a change? And so Marty, I think, is the precipice of like the ideal version of just being content enough to stay, like no change is necessary type thing, which I find to be like, I wish I was more like that sometimes, because I'm the type of person to keep going and going and going and like looking for the next thing. And I think that Scott wrote him in a way that's maybe not quite pitiful, but respecting his like almost like his decision. But we go into it. I think we go into that a lot in all the issues. So I'll pull back.
Yeah, I took some of his the broad strokes of his personality, the total dedication to his job from a real fast food employee. But I took a lot of the despair out, I wanted to make him overall, he's not a happy person, but he has a good attitude despite the circumstances he finds himself in. So
Sure. Yeah, I thought it was interesting because I thought it was interesting you said that, because I was talking to Al before you guys had come on, and I had said that I have met people like him while I was working at fast food. So,
yeah.
Yep. Absolutely.
And how did you select the rest of the team that you work with? Because again, just looking at, again, beautiful artwork, the coloring, the panel usage. I mean, how did you put all this wonderful book together, and the idea of the strip mall, coming from Florida? That's what we got over there.
Yeah. Well, Scott and I were really lucky to work with our current team, which Gab Contreras and I have worked together a lot on previous anthologies and such. So her and I have a really good rapport. I would say we're friends. it's really easy for us to work together. And we brought on Jimmy, who's our flatter. He's actually my old roommate from college. Him and I would do 24-hour comic day together when we used to go to the comic shop.
Oh, where you did that 24-hour joint? How was that experience before we move on?
Oh, I crashed in 5 hours. There's no way. I would never shows a lot for me joining, the comics industry after. Yeah. And then Scott brought on DC, which now I know him and he's phenomenal. And he actually created the logo for the series. And we brought in Jaslyn Stone for marketing and helping us with the Kickstarter and, world building with merch items and things like that. It's a great team. And I feel like everybody loves the book. So it shows, it really comes out in the pages, and we had a great time doing it. It's truly, I feel like, a great representation. But Scott and I have a great workflow together because we've been able to work together a lot. And he actually does layouts sometimes. It's very back and forth. And I think at the beginning, didn't you letter the first?
Yeah, I originally lettered it, and then I decided I wanted DC to do it. I thought he would do a better job. And he did. He did a great job.
It's just cool how much work Scott put into it, as a writer too. So,
and I'm digging. Hold on, I was gonna say something because this project. It's funny the number you chose. $6,666 was what you guys were looking for, and obviously did way well. So kudos on that. But why that number? I mean, you got to tie it into the Satanism.
Yeah, it's just the Satanism angle of the book, and we actually wanted to do $6,666.66, but Kickstarter doesn't do cents, so that kind of.
But they can't give you change. Come on, guys.
I know it's messed up. So we went with the best we could. So yeah, that's where I came from. So like I said, we knew we didn't have to ask for a ton because we were going to do the book anyway, and we thought it would have a better chance of success if we didn't have some exorbitant goal. We wouldn't spend a month freaking out, about trying to get there. So
now, both for Liana and Scott, what was the idea behind the time period that you placed in? Because I get the idea. So this book comes out in 2020, something like that, 2018. In that time frame, but I get the feeling this book is late 90s, early 2000s, from references to flip phones, and it's been 15 years since he was buying the Leader Ford tape and stuff like that. So how come you guys decided to set it there, and how did you go back and set it in that time period and everything? Because I thought it was an interesting choice. It was kind of cool. So.
It's cool that you're picking up on these little cues, but we intentionally keep it very vague about when the time period is
and where.
And where, yeah. So we've kept all that pretty vague. Not that it's a big secret or matters to the story, but it was just one of those things where I was like, yeah, no, Marty definitely still has a VCR. No matter what year it is, he's still got a VCR. And I was like, I just think
so do I though.
I said I think the book should feel like it could be the 80s, it could be the 90s, it could be 2022. That was the whole thing. We just wanted to see keep it kind of timeless in that way, right? Because I think one thing I find a little annoying is cell phones and comics, right? Smartphones, in movies and comics. Because really, think about this, right? Every episode of Seinfeld wouldn't happen if they were in an era with cell phones, right? Every single problem on Seinfeld could have been solved with a smartphone, right? So I find that kind of stuff. I just wanted to keep. I didn't want to just introduce they mentioned the internet in the book, I think, and they definitely use computers in one scene, but it's like a big desktop computer, right? Everything we just tried to keep it as clunky and
the old CRT monitors.
Yeah, exactly. Just wanted we wanted to keep everything very vague,
If you've ever visited a small town or lived or grew up in a small town, I feel like that's the feel. Everything's outdated. There's not new stuff. Pre-Amazon, pre all that.
I definitely got that from your artwork then, because it's it either felt like this is a town that is living in the past, or this is a town that's stuck in the past. It's one of the two, So it definitely had that feel. So
for sure.
Cool.
We're glad you noticed.
And I need this uniform in my life. Burger Lord, Holy Cola. What the hell is Holy Cola? Is it blessed?
when I looked at it, it had a definite Clerks 2 feel to it as well. You know, so it was like, you know, I was ready for movies to pop up next door to them or something like that. So,
And look at this, man, right there. Andrew with you there. Definitely Clerks era vibe, man.
Yeah, it's funny. I would
Jay
say
and who's Silent Bob?
yeah, I was gonna say, yeah, it's funny because Clerks actually had no, at least
I don't think we ever thought about that.
conscious influence on the book at all. Yeah, we never even talked about it as a
like. I always mention Good Burger.
Yeah, Good Burger and Tarantino, or like kind of the two touch points.
Welcome
just
to
the
Good Burger. Yeah, I remember.
See, the first fictional character that I kind of referenced with your main character was the guy that Judge Reinhold played in Fast Times at Ridgemont High.
Oh, right.
You know?
Yeah, sure. Yeah, right.
I love that movie.
Of course. Yeah, great movie. Yeah.
Uh-huh. So.
Yeah, Nevin's picking up on a whole bunch of stuff. That's also because he's a writer, so he's there studying. Boy.
Getting the subtext, I love it.
Yeah, very cool.
This is why he needed to be here.
There's a lot of subtle things in there, and I loved. Like I picked up on it in the art. I picked up on it, you know, and it's interesting you're talking about how you place it too, because it's like back in the 2000s, 90s, I don't think we'd have a weed shop. So yeah, it is like this weird timeless place to figure out where the hell we are, you know. So.
I love that scene too, because you know I partake in herbal refreshments sometimes. I'll say it like that, and yeah, that's the attitude. Just chill, bro. Just chill.
But there was an arcade with quarters still too. So now you're completely blowing my mind. I don't know when the hell we are. So.
The funniest thing when Scott wrote all that, we had added an extra page of scenes of the robbery, and most of the strip mall stores were actually based off of similar stores in my old hometown. But when we added that extra page, he was like, "You have to add a fireplace store." I was like, "What?" And I was like, "I have seen those, but where?" You know what I mean? And then once you remember and you think about it, you see them everywhere. And you're like, how are they still open?
Now you can't stop seeing them.
Scott's a genius. I know. Yeah.
I will have to say the one that made me laugh from a drawing perspective and a writing perspective the most was the mattress store. Because I worked in a video store at one point as well, and there was a mattress store across the way. Yeah. That dude looked so lonely and depressed all the time, just sitting there. So.
There's a particular line of what the guy said. This is what I did yesterday, and nobody showed up anyway. I was like, "Yo, that is hysterical! What a hysterical thing to even think about."
Yeah.
Go ahead. No,
I was gonna say, Zip, you please go. You are the guest. So.
Yeah, I was good. Did we expanded the robbery for the Kickstarter, right? Because in the original pitch, the robbery was just one page. So we expanded then. That's what it was. Okay. I was trying to remember. Yeah.
It definitely had that. It's funny you brought up Seinfeld. It's almost like a Seinfeld vibe where each of those little robbery pages, the way you drew it and the way it was written, was like a little story about nothing that was funny and its absurdity. You know, so it was like each one was like.
And the employee attitudes totally sucked. Like, no one was worried. No, we ain't got crap in here. Go ahead. I got $20, kiddo. Go ahead.
That was my biggest favorite part of like the nod towards like we respect everybody that has thankless jobs, because one, we've experienced it before, and two, it's not worth risking your life for the amount of cash that's in the cash register. This is just my day job. I don't care. You know what I mean?
And the insult, because he was like, that's the worst insult you could tell anybody. I was dying, you know, with the beehole. I was like, oh my God, here we go.
Whose idea was it to put the haul total in the panel for each of the separate robberies? Because that was pretty funny as well.
That was me. I thought it was important to see how much he was getting. And I thought he would, you know, even though he wouldn't have obviously had time to count it after each store he robbed, I thought it was important to kind of, you know, show the reader how much he was getting. And just as another, like I said, we're constantly looking to see how many jokes and little extra things we can pack in. You know, we really wanted to make sure the reader felt like they got their money's worth with every issue.
They will.
So every issue was just packed with stuff, you know, to sort of look at. So hopefully you can read it once, twice, 3 times and kind of pick up on new things every time.
And as them said, I noticed that too, and I find it funny, and it took me back to the Spawn days, where, you know, with the life cycles, but instead of the life cycles, like, this is the cheddar cycle. How much money am I scooping over here? Which is great and funny. I really dug that, and then obviously the flip because we're thinking there's a heist book, and boy, the things turn around as we start getting towards the end. Like, oh no, what is going on here? Some psycho crazy stuff is about to pop off with issue 2. Let me tell you, you guys have created an amazing setup with issue 1. And how many issues is this going to run? Is this going to be ongoing? Is it a limited series? What, man? Because I need to be dropping that money like I'm at a strip club. Like, I need this book.
Well, and I will say for both of you too, it's like, I having read comics and books and everything else for so many years, I've become a little jaded. I could see a lot of things coming from a mile away, and then suddenly the turn comes, and I didn't see that coming at all. And then suddenly with Liana's artwork, it became ominous. Suddenly these guys that were like, I can't think of the word, banal, these banal characters suddenly become insidious. And I was just like, well, now I got to know what's going on, and too. It was just out of nowhere. So kudos to you on that one. It's like I said, usually I see stuff coming, and I didn't see that one coming. So that was cool.
Yeah,
That was
how
cool.
intentful was that direction that you took with this issue 1? This longer platform, from a 5-page, story in an anthology to now a full book.
The issues have actually changed. So originally we released it as a 4-issue digital, and now with IDW it's a 5-issue printed, which is great because we got to add a lot of extra content. But it was even more fun to shape how each of the new page ends would be. And Scott did a phenomenal job at that. We love a good cliffhanger. That's why you got to go the next month to get it. You know what I mean? You got to keep them coming.
Yeah, and well done.
It was 4 issues originally, but when I talked about we wanted to do the book just like we wanted to do it, it meant that in the digital version, the issues were really weird lengths. Like the 3rd issue was like 28 pages, and the 4th issue was like 41 pages. Like very strange.
Oh,
like,
wow.
Really weird lengths, right? So our editor at IDW, Chase, who's a genius, said, hey, why don't you break it into 5 issues, right? So we can have a more consistent page count, and the price won't have to fluctuate. Yeah. And I said, no, you can't do that because it'll mess the whole thing up. You can't, it's got to be like this. And he's like, okay. And he mentioned it again later. And I was like, no. I completely dismissed it because, I know best. Right. And
he mentioned it again.
After a month, he just sent me, and he sent us an email. I was like, what if you broke it here and here? And I was like, well, let me look. And I looked, and I was like, oh man, what a genius. Right. So, but the result was that we ended up with some uneven issue. Like if we wanted each issue to be 22 pages, we ended up with like an 18, a 14, whatever. So we had a bunch of space to fill, and we didn't fill the space, but we did fill the space, but we did it by, there were a few transitions I never liked. I was like, let's fix these transitions. There were a few scenes I wanted to linger on for an extra page. So we did that. There was a scene we had always talked about doing that we had just never put in the original book that we just didn't do it. And we never found the
so that's going to be an exclusive scene in the IDW release?
Oh, absolutely.
There's a new scene. There's a new scene in issue 2 that wasn't in the original. Every issue except the first one has new pages that nobody's seen. But every issue has some changes, whether it's dialogue, whether it's corrections. Leon actually redrew a couple of pages entirely, where I was like, hey, can you just fix these figures? Like, I just want to fix these figures here just to do this. And she's like, okay. And then she redrew the whole page, So, so there's a lot, if you're familiar with it already, there's a lot of stuff that will be new, but it was fun that, we were able to really go back and in terms of like, the cliffhangers, the first one always ended in the same place, but some of the later issues now end at a different place. So it was really important to me. Okay, how are we going to make this have the right punch? Like as if this was the original ending, which meant in a few places we had to add a page before it to like really make the transition work or whatever. But it was always things that make the book better as a whole, not just us putting some duct tape over something, right? So
we spent an entire Saturday for like 7 hours almost discussing and like being very meticulous about planning.
You lasted longer that Saturday than you did on the 24-hour comic thing.
There's money involved now. So
I ain't sleeping now, kiddo.
Is Trve Kvlt like a self-contained series. Okay, so it's
five
like
issue miniseries.
5 issues. That's it. We got
That's
our
it.
story. Cool.
Yeah, you get the
Now,
whole the whole story.
So do you guys have something else that you want to work on together after this, or what do you have going forward? What is your plan?
Because you guys make a hell of a team. That's why we need to know.
Can you whet our appetites a little bit?
Well, before we even finished Trve Kvlt, we were already saying like, we're gonna do something else together.
It was not even a question. I literally was like, we're going to be the next Brubaker Phillips. I'm calling it right now.
Oh, there we go. Hell yeah. Giants, legends, kiddo. Hell yeah.
But yeah, then I was
not to put ourselves on a giant platform like that. But,
right. But then I was like, oh, well, I have two, I have two ideas we could do. And she's like, okay, we'll do both of those. And then she was like, I have an idea. Let's talk about that. And then we talked about, I was like, okay, so that's the next thing we're going to do. Right. Which is completely different from Trve Kvlt. Other than it's from us, so we're working on that. And we'll just see, we'll have more to announce there when we have something, to show. So,
Cool.
And as you can see, Andrew R is already requesting, we need volume 2. What's popping?
Yeah, there's I wrote in the back of each IDW issue, I wrote a little thing, sort of a next issue blurb, and in the last issue, Drew, I do address Trve Kvlt 2 as a really stupid idea.
Is it subtitled Revenge of Burger Lord by any chance?
No, actually, no. It may be, the Sandwich Lord, and throw
Rihanna's experience into that. Gotta give me a Sandwich Lord, yeah.
That's so great. You guys are amazing. I love the energy. I love the book, and thank you so much for even talking to us today about this, because again, congrats on having such a successful Kickstarter and having, publishers just be like, yo, bring it here. I mean, it must have felt so good to have so many people reach out, especially publishers like, yo, wait a minute, I want this on my platform. I mean, just before we finish, how did you feel as creators to have such excitement, coming from that publishing perspective?
Oh, unreal. They've been the most supportive. It's especially San Diego, they were so supportive of Trve Kvlt and through me my own signing with like special edition lithographs. And
was that your
sorry,
first?
I'm answering for us. No, but it was my second San Diego, and it's just the first time doing a big production, like signing multiple times with IDW. So it was incredible, and they really care about the series and the fans. There were a lot of fans too. So
I agree 100, because shout out to Laura as well. She's like, yo, Al, you guys got to talk to these people. Reference Seinfeld.
now, the last question I'd have for both of you. I mean, you're both established in the industry. You've worked, in the traditional industry, and you also did Kickstarter. With the pandemic and everything, what do you think about the industry and Kickstarter and crowdfunding and versus traditional? Is there room for both? Is it going to be a crossover like you guys are doing? What are your thoughts on that? Because I know that a lot of our readers are interested in that because they're purchasing. A lot of people out there who want to develop comics are interested in that because they want to get into it. So I'm sure they'd love to hear what you think.
I think the biggest hurdle Kickstarter has in terms of print comics is the price point. Right, because you end up paying with shipping, you end up paying $15 for like a 22-page comic, right? If you're into digital, there's a lot more, there's a lot more flexibility there. But I think it's not really about the money in that sense. It's about people wanting to support creators, right? So I'll back something, right? And I'm if this was on the shelf at a comic shop, there's no way I would pay $15 for this. But it's more than that now, right? This is to help something, become a reality. I think Kickstarter is great for comics. I think it really gives a lot of people an opportunity that wouldn't have been there before. It was huge for us. It got us so much exposure for this book, and obviously it led directly to us signing with IDW to do the book and then building a relationship with them. And I definitely think there's a place for both. I think there's a lot of interest in creator-owned books now, not just Marvel and DC, and even you see a lot of the biggest creators at those companies leaving to go do creator-owned books, you know. So there's
Of course, it's your IP you wind up owning instead of being raped if it comes into a movie, you know, excuse that word, but that's what happens. You know, the big two just don't take care of creators as they should. They play games, which is not fair, and allowing you to have actually your own IP. Now, guess what? Who's in the driver's seat now, kiddo?
Yeah, I mean, you know, the cool thing is, you know, I got more followers on Twitter for the Batman story I did with John Paul Leon. I got like 200 and
a legend,
day or two, right? And like I wouldn't get that many when Trve Kvlt since we've launched it, right? So that's the real advantage of the work for hire stuff, is that you can really build a big audience. You know, you have the potential to build a big audience, right? Whereas if you're just strictly going on your creator-owned stuff, it is a real grind. It gets you visibility with people who might not see it otherwise.
Yeah,
and I think it also gives it gives you a certain level of like professional, like it looks like, oh, this guy wrote Batman, but now he's doing this Kickstarter thing, right? Like I think it just gives you a little, you know, someone else has paid you to write their characters, right? So there's definitely a place for both, for sure. And you know, there's always some really cool stuff happening on Kickstarter, you know. So
what about you, Liana? Yeah, as an artist, from that perspective.
As an artist, and like I've been a collector too for a long time, specifically direct market. But when I was in college and, you know, older, I started getting like more graphic novels and things like that. And I think that there is space. I think that the crowdfunding scope is totally different from direct market and, you know, comic shop type single issue things. It's totally different, really. And honestly, so is book market. But I think that it's a symbiotic relationship for those that are, you know, doing their best and reaching out to their, you know, communities and creating like very authentic connections with these people who are backing the book. Like Scott said, like they'll spend the money because they want to support you, not necessarily buy that merchandise item. But when you go into a comic shop, you're buying a merchandise item. You're not, I mean, obviously, you know, your creators that you like or anything, but typically most people, aside from Wednesday Warriors, having had worked at a comic shop, people just walk into shop. It's retail. So it's completely different. It's a totally different scope. And I think that both are doing so well. And I think it's great that some of these series are getting hundreds of thousands of dollars funded, and, you know, maybe Penguin Random House picks them up or whatever. Like whether it be a comic publisher who we know and love, or if it's a book publisher or whatever, I think it's just hopefully great that it's going to uplift and like honestly regenerate and rejuvenize our direct market, because it suffered through the pandemic and so did comic shops, and we need it to come back up. So
yeah, I'm very happy. I just moved to Brooklyn and I discovered there's 2 new shops around my way. So I was like, I met one of them yesterday. Then my other boy said, wait a minute, you know, there's another one. I said, what? Don't blow my mind. I got to go tomorrow.
I do think it's fair to say, though, for Kickstarter, you know, and kudos to you guys, you had offers from these other companies, but you got to honor your Kickstarter backers and deliver, you know, not to pick on anybody that Al wants to go after.
Oh God, don't do that to me. I've been waiting 10 years for one Kickstarter book to come my way. You know, they say, oh, you want a refund? I'm like, no, if I'm waiting this long, I better get this book, and it better be outlined in gold or something.
I really dragged my feet on the Kickstarter thing, because I was like, well, if we can't send people their book like a month after it ends, like I don't want to do it. You know, like I was very like concerned about that. And Liana was like, it'll be fine. Don't worry. We got this. Like,
I'm great with customer service.
Yeah. So we knew it wasn't, we knew it would never be an issue where we didn't, we were unable.
But it's a valid concern for those of us who don't get items. Like I've been lucky in that the 50 or whatever that I've backed, I've received everything probably. But again, I do it more so because I'm just like, I like the idea. I like the creator. Yeah. I want this to succeed for you.
I've only had that one problem. Only that one person has been.
I will actually back them. I will actually back them and forget about it immediately.
Yeah, me too.
8 months later, something shows my mailbox. I'm like, what is this? And I'm like,
oh, pay for this.
I literally just got one of those yesterday. I think it was, you know, one of those Joe Mulvey books or whatever.
Listen, when I get my book after 10 years, I think I'm going to throw a block party.
Hey, we should shout out the amazing variant cover artists we have too. I don't
Shout out.
think we mentioned them, but Maria Yvette, I think is how you say her last name. It did a variant cover for all 5 issues. Issue 1
So
also has
beautiful.
a variant cover by Fabian Lelay, and all 5 issues have a IDW direct to consumer exclusive cover. You can only get it by ordering from IDW.
Ooh.
very cool.
So yeah, they are connecting covers that tell a story. Liana drew them. I wrote them. So it's pretty cool. We were like, we spent, I don't know, a couple hours on the phone one day trying to figure out who what to do for the IDW exclusive cover. And we were going through names. We were both going through our comic shelves. We're trying to figure out who we could ask. We were like, oh, man, what about this person? Oh, they're too busy. Oh, they can't do it, you know, or like, oh, I really like this person, but are they going to really sell? Like, are people going to buy it? You know, we're going on. And then I just went, oh, you know what? You should just draw it. Like, you draw it.
I did have that Star Wars one that dropped, and that was, I think, the validation that I was like, okay.
Yeah, it sold out
Sure.
really fast, right?
We
A
could do
couple
that.
hours or
Yeah,
something.
yeah.
So it's connecting covers, and it's actually
That's cool.
it's an infinite connecting cover because the 5th cover connects to the first cover. So
You get the 3D angle. Oh my God!
you gotta buy a lot of copies. Yeah.
Well, now you got to tell IDW they've got to put out a lithograph print with all 5 covers on the print next to each other telling the story.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Hey,
That's a good
Like
idea.
that
Yeah.
Have you seen the Nightwing comic that opens up and it actually shows all the panel work and it's just the movement of the progression of Nightwing, and it's all 22 pages, but just done like, yo, spread this out. I mean, it was a long spread, but yo, I would love to put something like that on a wall. Like, yo, check this out.
Yeah. No, it's cool. So
let's get it done, bro.
Yeah.
It's a great idea.
This is great. Guys, you have been amazing. I want to take too much more for your time because you guys got to start working on the next True Cult Volume 2 or whatever is popping, because you guys are an amazing creative team.
Thank
you. Flowers time. You guys ruled. You guys will be future legends, because this book had me going through things, had me smiling, had me laughing, and then got me hooked like a fish. I need issue 2, 3, 4, 5 right now. And I need more of this awesome universe. Let me tell you. Although it has not, I will not flip burgers. I don't want to do that, because if somebody talked to me like that, that book would have been very different. But I'm digging it. So my people that is peeping in and will peep it afterwards, this is what you got to do. All right. I want you to follow Liana on her website at lianakangas.com. All right. Everything is in the details on the bottom, so you can click away all you want. All right. Please follow her on Twitter as well, Liana Kangas. All right. Then you got Scott BryanWilson.com as well. Check out his website. And of course, you can follow him on the Twitter at Scott B.R. Wilson and IG at Scott Bryan Wilson, full name. But most importantly, go to your local comic shop right now. Go to IDW's website, because this book is dropping on the 16th of August. All right. So get it done, yo. For real. Support to LCS if they got it, but get that IDW exclusive too. That sounds really cool. Woo! Yes. All right.
Tell them you want that 5-issue lithograph.
Yes.
That's a great idea.
Let's campaign for that. Let's campaign for that one. So this is great, guys. Thank you so much for your time. We're humbled and honored that you had the time to chat with us about the greatness of this book. Again, you've already made me into a big fan. So
thank you.
Last question here. Actually, before we go, will you guys be doing any other cons this year where we could actually meet you and get some signed copies of this baby?
Scott and I will be at Emerald City Comic Con in 2 weeks from today.
The day after issue 1 comes out, we will be there.
We will have a huge surprise at both of our booths. We're actually sitting next to each other, H12 and H13 in Artist Alley. And
why not booth 666? No.
I know. So we'll have tons of cool stuff there, and I'm also a guest at Dragon Con this year,
awesome.
as well as Thought Bubble in the UK.
Oh, you're traveling too. My boy Johnny Hughes loves that show, so maybe you're gonna meet one of my Crusaders out there too. It's gonna be awesome.
Very cool. Very cool.
I'll be at New York Comic Con in Artist Alley. I don't know my booth number yet, but I will be at New York Comic Con this year. So
I will meet you then. That means because I'm going to NYCC, so I'll make
Love
sure
it.
this pass
Let's do
by.
it.
When you hear the loudest Puerto Rican on the floor, that's going to be me. Don't
Hey,
you worry.
I love it. I
Huh?
look forward to it.
Yeah. When you hear "Wepa" from far away, Al's here. Damn it. All right. But again, folks, click everything below on the channel. Thank you guys so much. Thank you, Nem, for chit-chatting
Always,
too
brother.
and hanging out, brother. You guys rock. Folks, you know what to do. Check out everything Comic Crusaders at comiccrusaders.com. Follow us on all the socials at comiccrusaders.com. All right? You know what to do. And with that, it's Almega with Mr. Nemesis, Liana Kangas, and Scott B. Wilson. Hasta la próxima. Much love. Wepa! Thank you for listening to the Comic Crusaders podcast. If you like the content, please subscribe and turn on notifications. Also, please visit comiccrusaders.com and our extended podcast family over at undercovercapes.com. And also, make sure to download the Comic Crusaders app on the Google Play Store today.